All right, just wanted to go over IWM here. I feel like it had a really good setup today that gave a 10 out of 10 level to risk around. And I just wanted to explain how I found the level. And this is sort of how I believe, um, at least how I believe I am able to find the best level um, to trade around. So IWM. So basically, there's three components: is the time frames, right? So we have sort of the larger time frame, we have the medium time frame, and then we have the intraday, last day or two intraday levels time frames. And so in this case, all three time frames aligned. So here are the three. So we have number one is the higher time frame downtrend. So um, we had that big range that IWM was in, and then it broke down out of the range. So we're on a downtrend. And sure, recently we've sort of double bottomed here, and we're making our way back up, but um, we're still in a downtrend unless otherwise. We still have to break numerous levels on the way up to say that the bulls are now in control. So even though every time we break a level and we get above it, sure, bulls are in control for the time being, but they're soon going to have to deal with new bears again. For example, coming up here, it's going to have to deal with 210 again, and you're going to see pressure. And comes up here, you're going to have to deal with 225 again. You're going to have to deal with this gap fill again at 228, etc. So overall, it's in a downtrend. Number two, recently we've had a daily range resistance. So if we zoom in here, what has been created is, we all know, a daily range, right? So we have a double bottom, so maybe this is the lowest it goes. However, it hasn't really been making new highs, and the most recent high is this 203 here, right? So before today, which is what I'm going to go over, this was the range that we had where all of these days um, agreed that 203 wasn't couldn't get any higher than 203. Okay, so we have the downtrend, we have a daily range where they all agree that 203 is some resistance, and then we have the smallest time frame, which is a fresh level from yesterday, which is sort of the second day play. So I consider yesterday a second day play because um, we we had a double bottom and we had some nice moves up, and then we started to see a pullback here. And so I consider this the first day, second day, where on the second day we started to create value and find value here and sort of settle down here. So if we go to the 5 minute, um, here's yesterday. So here's the second day, right? So the last few days we double bottomed, then we started coming up. We're searching for new value, coming back up, and then we hit that top of that range, which was 203 here. And so, to me, yesterday we had we could clearly see that it was struggling to get above 203. And if we zoom out, 203 right here was the level that was the top of the daily range where price couldn't get above. Okay. And I do think 205 is also another level, but 203 was what I was liking. Well, then yesterday it shows, in fact, that 203 is a strong level because it rejected it at around 11 all day long. And then only right at the end, right before it closes, did it pop through it. So to me, all time frames align to that 203 level. We're downtrending, so we're weak. And then on the daily range from the last 5-6 days, all agree that 203 is hard to get through. And then yesterday on the second day play here on a super fresh level is claiming that 203 is still giving it some resistance. So today we open up just above 203, we get down underneath 203, and that to me is a clear short. And that's pretty much it. I mean, that's I feel like that's just clear as day to me that that 203. I mean, IWM did break through 203 yesterday, right before the close, so that might have degraded the level a little bit, but I still think that this 203 is a perfect level here. NEO did a similar setup. Here you can see again NEO in a big downtrend. So it's it's selling off unless otherwise, right? And then it did a little reversal here. We're seeing maybe a little bit of a head and shoulders. But then yesterday we had a second day, which is, we had a big move up, and then we had a second day where it started to settle down and created a doji here and found value here. And these are really good for isolated pivots, for a good range resistance trade. And but not only is this level fresh and good to trade around, you want that level to align with something bigger. Now it would have been the best if had this been all the way up here at 26, because it was a gap. And not only would you've had this fresh daily level here, but it would have aligned with this whole $1.26, which would have aligned with the gap in here. And then even better, maybe it would have been up here at this 27 gap fill. But nonetheless, this was a solid setup here. And you could also say, well, you could see here that when it was selling down here, these 3 days made a similar area range here from here to here. So it actually had trouble getting above 25 when it was in here. So you combine that with the higher time frame idea that we're trending down. This thing's trying to turn around, but these things always take a lot longer to turn around. And so anytime you're met with resistance areas, you want to be a little bit more cautious. And then in this case, when you get a third day play here, when you're shown the day before that, hey, this is having trouble getting above 25, that on this third day, if it gives you the ability to trade around the level 25, you want to go for it if price action gives it to you. So when we go on the 5-minute here, you can see here these are the levels created from the last 2 days, and then this is today, and it's pretty cut and dry. On this day, it was moving really well. After that reversal down here, started to putter out a little bit and find some area of value right here. And then the second day, just moving all around this area. So clearly, after these 2 days, you're telling yourself, okay, well, value is definitely between $23 and as high as $25. We have a $2 ATR, and then we know that 25 is having trouble getting above it. And sure enough, yesterday it also had trouble. I mean, it got to 25.15 or whatever, but we can generally say that, yeah, 25 is definitely giving it some trouble. So then what do you know? Price is opening right near 25, and which does make it a little tricky because it's at the open. However, this totally makes sense. I mean, it rejects 25, had decent RVOL today, and it sells off. And then your targets can be really these levels align with the whole dollars and the half dollars. So you have yourself a $2 ATR, which is perfect from $25 to 23. It's pretty much perfect, just like Ford a few weeks ago when it broke out and made itself some fresh day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of levels here, and it kept moving around. And I think Ford is a similar price stock, so maybe there should be a connection there. But yeah, sold from 25 right down to 24, that whole dollar, which was also the low value right here, and then bounced from there. And then you had another move all the way down to 23, and then back up to 24 for the retest. And then you can see in the aftermarket, it continued to go down, which makes sense because remember in the higher time frame, this is in a downtrend. So you're essentially selling the pops until otherwise. AMD, I mean, this thing made a lot of sense to me as well. The $100 was an awesome bounce. You can just see it was the low back from the summer before it took off. So sold down real hard, bounced off 100, and then went to fill this gap. And not only did we fill it, but we had three big moves in a row, and then we had a huge gap up. And I just felt like it was a perfect setup for profit taking because we had, 3 big days of buying, and then we had another big gap up. And then on top of that, we had this nice 130 psychological level, which also aligned with the bottom of this double top essentially right here. So I felt like if it would stay under 130, it'd be a good short to 125 and then potentially to 120. It looks like it's selling off more in the aftermarket, but you could see 125 super clean there. This is sort of open space. I mean, more of the shares have been traded above 130 and then below 120. So I feel like that's why it's going to go really quick between 130 and 120 here. Unless it stays in here longer, then it's going to get more caught. But otherwise, it makes sense. It just got right through it really quick and then got right through it again really quick. And then if you look at the 5-minute here, a lot of these stocks opened up right at the level in my mind here, and right here opened at 130 and sold off super strong. Within a matter of 20 minutes, it was down through 125. Then you had that big pullback after that big move, and then it retested the 125. Yep, and didn't get all the way down to 120 until the aftermarket here. And then the Qs I traded decently. Same thing. Bounced here, just like the SPY and the other markets, made a pretty nice tight daily range here, then broke out with this move, moved up again yesterday, and then gapped up. So I'm thinking, okay, I would like to see some profit taking. Are there some good levels? Now I already had 370 marked because you can see here this bounce from 370, and then the next level to me was around 375. I just think there's so many resistance levels on the way up that every time we make new highs here, we're going to run into one of these levels, and then it's only a matter of time before we get a nice pullback again. So if you're overall bullish on the market, you want to be buying every time we get these pullbacks. Maybe we'll even come all the way back down to 355, and then that would be an awesome buying opportunity. Unless it goes under 355, then we might be coming back down to 340. And so price was opening again right at that level, that 370. Seemed like a profit taking level, and so I pretty much got in at the second 5-minute candle here. Saw it sold down a little bit, came back up. I put in some limit orders up here at 370. Got filled a little bit, watched it not really be able to get above 370, so I kept adding in, and then got a good move down here to 366. And sort of kind of played with it, fought it a little bit. I started adding in on the way back up with the idea that it wasn't going to get above 370, but I did get a little scared right here and got out of some of it, and saved myself $1. Had it ripped through it, I felt like I was going to save myself a little bit, but then of course it came right back down, so I added it back in, took some more profits. And then here was sort of, so that was one move, and then I did see a bit of a descending triangle happening here, and I was watching the other stocks too. And so right here, price was coming down. I got in for the break. It came up a little bit. I got out. I got back in, and then it moved pretty well, and I partialed most of them right here, and then got out of the remaining right here. So I was pretty heavy. You can see it double bottomed and didn't continue, and then I tried, I don't know, something small there, but this was, I do think this was a nice key level, but it would have been a lot nicer had, for example, this sort of smaller day been in line with 370. So that's the thing about these catching the shorts. Even though I have a really good level on a higher time frame, it's not as fresh because yesterday didn't even get up that high. So I think Neo was a little bit better in terms of having that fresh second day before to add to the higher time frame level. One other thing that I wanted to go over was when I was in my QQQ trade and it was selling down here and then it was even pulling back a bit, I was using other stocks like IWM and AMD to help tell me that QQQ was still going to be weak, or at least the SPY as well, because IWM, to me, I said that I really liked that 203 level. Well, 203 had been broken after 15 minutes and it was selling down. And so as long as IWM was underneath 203, I felt like that was going to help my case with holding my QQQ short. Had IWM gotten above it and held, or started to come up and we saw new volume come in, I felt like it was going to break out of 203, well, then I would have taken that into consideration with my QQQ. And then the same thing with AMD. I felt like it had sold off under the key 130 level and it was really strong. VWAP went down real hard. And so as long as AMD was under 130, I also thought that QQQ was going to have trouble getting back above 130. Now, the interesting thing was that Microsoft, even though it was kind of ugly, and I don't really like the chart, there was a clear sort of it's not super clear. I don't think this daily is near as good. You can just see the wicks are really big. So when the wicks are this big, you just can't use the levels as well. But you can see here these days, just generally this 310 to 312 area, and then even the last 2 days has been resistance. Okay, and so but this morning it actually got above there and then started ripping right here. So for these 15 minutes, when it got above 312 and then 313, it was going. That was a little bit alarming, but everything else was not doing that. Apple wasn't doing that. Microsoft wasn't doing, or Apple wasn't doing it. Microsoft was though. And when you look at Apple here, it was not doing that. So it was staying in a range. So I'm sort of combining all of these big stocks and saying, okay, Microsoft is sort of breaking out, but the RVOL wasn't really increasing. However, everything else like Apple, AMD, Neo, some of these other stocks in play, AMD was, 300% RVOL. They're all super strong selling off. That's all going to help my cause. So I think you can really look at stocks like that and combine them and say, well, okay, yeah, what are the markets doing? But what are the big stocks also doing in connection with those? Tesla also was selling off. I don't know if I necessarily had the best levels set up for Tesla. And actually it sort of made a little bit of a range here, and maybe it was towards the bottom of the range. And it was sort of testing that 910, but eventually it got under it. So, yeah, that's all I got.